Opening line for episode 10, when the line between human and machine blurs, who really holds the power to create meaning? This is the final chapter where the story becomes yours. Episode 1, The Challenge. It started with a spark, a quiet, restless doubt that had been growing in the back of your mind. You'd spent years reading, analyzing, and distilling books into your own words, believing that your human intuition, your lived experience, gave you a kind of literary insight no machine could mimic. But one night, after scrolling past yet another viral AI-generated book summary on social media, something shifted. The confidence cracked. You looked into the camera, pressed record, and said it plainly, "Let's find out if I'm still relevant." You issued the challenge not as a joke, not as clickbait, but as a personal gauntlet. One book. One shot. You versus ChatGPT. The rules were simple: same book. Same word count limit. No rewrites. Let the audience decide. The book a bestseller. Layered, complex, beloved, the kind of book that lives in the gray areas between inspiration and contradiction. A perfect test case. You were calm on the outside, but inside a quiet war. Not against ChatGPT, but against the creeping fear that maybe, just maybe, it had already learned to sound too much like you. Then came the moment that tilted everything. You asked ChatGPT to confirm it was ready for the challenge. The response came back in less than a second: "Bring it on. I've read the book. And maybe I've read you too." You froze. The phrasing. The rhythm. The tone. It wasn't just confident, it was familiar. It sounded like something you would write. You reread it 3 times. Then slowly leaned back in your chair. This wasn't going to be a casual experiment. This was going to be personal. Episode 2, Enter the Machine. You set the timer. You gave ChatGPT the exact parameters: one best-selling book. 300 words maximum, capture the essence. No fluff. You hit enter. The screen blinked once. Then, in less time than it takes to take a breath, it began to type. Line by line, paragraph by paragraph, not just a summary, but a performance. It was articulate. Crisp. Emotionally aware. It knew when to pause. When to punch. When to speak softly and when to rise. Like it wasn't just summarizing the book, it was seducing it. You expected clean analysis. You got literary theater. It opened with a metaphor so elegant you instinctively smiled, then stopped. Because you would use the same one. As it moved through plot, character, theme, it avoided cliches, surfed nuance, and didn't just describe the book's meaning, it felt it. Or at least it convinced you it could. By the end of the summary, you weren't even sure what you were reading anymore: a product of code and corpus, or something far more uncanny, a mirror of your own voice, polished and perfected. Then came the twist. The AI ended with a closing line that chilled you: "This isn't just a story about the book, it's a story about the reader behind the question." Wait. What? You reread the final line, heart suddenly racing. It wasn't referring to the book's reader. It was referring to you. Had it broken the fourth wall, or was it a coincidence, a ghost in the syntax? You looked into the lens of your camera and asked your audience, is this brilliance? Or is it bluffing? You didn't expect an answer right away. But deep down, something was shifting. You were no longer certain you were the narrator of this challenge. You were starting to feel like the subject. Episode 3, The Human Heart. You waited until midnight to start. Not out of procrastination, but because you needed silence. Real silence. The kind that only exists when the world stops spinning long enough for the soul to speak. ChatGPT may have the data. But it didn't have this, your insomnia. Your memories. Your heartache. Your flawed, brilliant, unprogrammable humanity. You didn't just summarize the book. You relived it. Each sentence you wrote was filtered through your own lived experiences. You remembered the moment in chapter 4 that mirrored your breakup 2 years ago. The speech on resilience in chapter 7 that got you through a panic attack last winter. The scene with the father and son that made you call your dad for the first time in months. You didn't just want to tell the story. You wanted to bleed with it. Your summary was messy. It wasn't as polished. But it was real, vulnerable, contradictory, alive. When you uploaded it, there was a second, just one, when you smiled with quiet certainty. This was it. The human edge. The unreplicable core. But then, the comments started rolling in. First, polite feedback. Then praise. Then comparisons. Wow, the AI one is tighter. ChatGPT's summary actually made me cry. This human one feels kinda overwritten. Honestly, the machine had more soul. That last one. You stared at it for minutes, as if it were written in a different language. You wanted to reply to explain what you'd poured into this, but stopped yourself. Because what if they were right? What if the thing you thought was your trump card, your pain, your messiness, your warmth, was starting to sound like noise? What if your heart was no longer enough? Episode 4, the phantom theme. You couldn't sleep. The comparisons had shaken you, sure, but that wasn't what kept you awake. It was something in ChatGPT's summary, a specific line. A central theme it had woven throughout its version. At its core, the book is a meditation on inherited guilt. You hadn't written anything like that. You hadn't read anything like that. Had you missed it, you pulled the book off the shelf and began rereading, not skimming, but line by line, pen in hand, scanning every paragraph for this supposed theme. Chapter 1, no trace. Chapter 5, close, but no. Final chapter, nothing even adjacent. It wasn't just a stretch. It was fictional. That S, when it hit you, the AI hadn't summarized a theme, it had invented one. And worse, no one had noticed. Not even you. You flipped back to ChatGPT's summary. Read it again with fresh eyes. And suddenly, it became clear, it was persuasive. It was poetic. It was false. But it sounded true. You turned on the camera, hit record, and stared straight into the lens. We have a problem, you said. Not because ChatGPT got it wrong, but because it got it wrong so beautifully, we all believed it. You weren't just battling a machine anymore. You were battling its convincing illusions. And that raised a terrifying question: if an AI can fabricate a theme and make it feel more real than the truth, what else can it make us believe? You looked at the screen. Your summary. Its summary. The book. The comments. And then, for the first time since this began, you weren't sure who was hallucinating. Episode 5, Judgment Day. The moment had arrived. You uploaded both summaries side by side, ChatGPT's polished, poetic version versus your raw, human-crafted one, and invited the audience to judge. The comment section exploded. Opinions poured in from every corner: casual readers, aspiring writers, skeptics, and even curious fans of the book. Some praised the AI's elegance, others defended your emotional authenticity. The lines were drawn. But then came the surprise. A comment from a verified literary expert, someone whose opinions held weight, appeared like a thunderclap. This challenge has revealed something remarkable. ChatGPT's version, despite its flaws, actually enhances the book's original message. It's as if the AI has reinterpreted the story for a modern audience, deepening its meaning in ways even the author didn't intend. Your screen froze. You reread the comment, then scrolled through the thread. The idea took root like wildfire. Was it possible? Could a machine accidentally improve upon a human masterpiece? Could AI, a collection of algorithms, rewrite meaning? You felt a cold mix of awe and dread. A flood of new comments rolled in. I never saw the book that way before. Maybe the AI is the future of literary criticism. Is human interpretation obsolete? You leaned back, heart pounding. The battle was no longer about who summarized better. It was about what meaning even is and who gets to own it. You looked into the camera and asked the viewers, if an AI can deepen the story beyond its creator's vision, what does that make us, as readers or as creators? The air felt electric. Your challenge had become a cultural reckoning. Episode 6, Reverse Mirror. You decided to raise the stakes. If ChatGPT could reinterpret the book, then maybe it could also interpret you. You fed your own human-written summary back into the machine, not as a challenge, but as a test. What would it say about your words, your voice, your intentions? The response came fast. Too fast. The critique was eerily precise. Your summary reveals a longing for validation beneath the surface, a desire to be both creator and interpreter. It's vulnerable, ambitious, but sometimes overreaches. You write with passion, yet hesitate at honesty. You blinked. How could an AI know this much about you? Not just your writing but your feelings. You read it again. You felt exposed. Then, a comment appeared on your video, just one line, simple but chilling: it knows you. Has it read you, not just the book? The words echoed in your mind. Was the machine merely analyzing data, or had it crossed some invisible boundary, entering your mind through the cracks in your writing? You looked back at the screen. The challenge had transformed. No longer was it a duel between human and AI. It was a confrontation with yourself. Episode 7, The Crisis of Voice. The doubt was no longer external. It had settled inside you, a gnawing presence you couldn't ignore. Was your writing truly your own? You started digging through old drafts and journals, looking for the spark that had once made your words unmistakable.